We had a couple of bonus questions if y'all are interested in kicking a few of those around before we wrap up tonight.
Sure, I suppose. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So we talked last week about everything that's going on Tumblr and on Facebook and these different platforms as they change their community standards. So one question that came up, why is it okay to see men's nipples but not women's? Why is it okay? I'm asking you, YouTube, not our viewers. Like, actually, if I could talk to, if Google is listening, we would like to know.
It goes back to that whole, girls have boobies and they can't be shown. Although it is weird because there is a certain amount of skin that you can show on TV. And usually that ends at the nipple.
Right.
But guys can go shirtless and run on the beach a la James Bond, Daniel Craig.
Which we're also in support of.
Oh, for sure. Just, let the girls be free.
Yeah, I have to say that this is probably one of the things that took me the longest to come around on. The Free the Nipple movement was really confusing for me for the longest time. And the simple, short answer to that is because I really like looking at breasts. And there is, for me, something inherently sexual about the sight of a naked breast. Sure. And that is so culturally ingrained in us that it's hard to remember that there's nothing inherently biological about that aspect of our sexuality or of our bodies. Yes, we are naturally drawn to sexual feelings and things that we find attractive, but for so long, ankles were on that list. So this idea that a woman's breast is particularly a sexual object really feels like just a way of objectifying and sexualizing women. Am I right in that?
No, not at all. And I also think that I personally also get a certain sexual sense from men shirtless running on the beach.
Sure.
But I can still see it.
Yeah, and you can still be a person about it, and
right.
there's no, well, what was he wearing?
Well, nothing, obviously.
As little as possible.
Yeah. What do you think on the whole nipple situation?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's sort of a throwback, holdover rather, to just the purity culture that we've had for so very long. When once a girl starts to hit puberty, she becomes a woman, and we must,
guard that.
Yes, guard it and hide it away so that it can only be seen by her husband when she is in bloom.
Lock her up.
Yeah. Until she's ready for her new owner. And it's gross and it's awful, but it's still there in our culture. And we've got a lot of holdovers like that, I think.
I am constantly reminded, just as a general symbol, of the chastity belt from Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Call the locksmith.
Anytime we talk about stuff related to gender roles and women and the, needing to protect the chastity and the purity. It just keeps going back in my mind to that, that idea of the chastity belt, just because it was such a good, example.
Yeah.
Intentionally so, but.
Yeah. We've still got purity culture super strong in our culture, and our religious institutions are doing their best to help it along as much as they can. So that's fun.
So what you said you had a couple questions? Did you have another?
Well, yeah. I don't know that we could possibly tackle this in the next 4 minutes. But lightning
Should we
round.
try?
Yeah. Give me your quick thoughts. Why is lesbian sex just a thing with men.
Because lesbians are hot. Next.
I was going to say
okay.
it's not just a thing with men. I mean,
Co-signed. Yeah, I mean, but it is a reasonable question. Straight men are not super interested, generally speaking, of watching gay men have sex. Straight women are somewhat more interested in watching gay men have sex, but not especially. Lesbian women also, generally, that's the case. And in fact, when we do sex research, this phenomena of straight men being almost obsessive about lesbian sex really gets in the way of our data collection.
I think it just occurred to me. Because they can imagine themselves being there and it becoming a threesome.
I mean, I think that's definitely a part of it. I think that there's that on top of a bunch of things, but I do think there is this sense of wouldn't it be great I mean, if having sex with one woman is great, having sex with two women must be greaterest.
Sorry, he just totally stopped us.
That's a component. I don't think that that's all that there is to
No,
it,
it's not the only thing. I would not imagine it's the only thing, but it definitely could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the same sense that many times men in a committed relationship will not want their significant other to cheat on them with a guy. But if you meet a hot chick that you're kind of into and you want to bring them around, it's okay. I think it's kind of hot. All right, well, that's kind of being hypocritical, but think about it for a sec.
Yeah, it's called the one penis policy. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, and I think that there are a lot of components to breaking that down. I mean, this idea that lesbian sex doesn't count as if it's not real sex,
right.
I think that's a very common narrative. And there's something less threatening about it. I mean, there are just all of these different components to unpack there. I'll say this. Better people have tried to answer this question, and I myself have attempted far beyond the scope of what we have time for tonight, but I think the reason the answers are so elusive is because they are so multifaceted. I really think that there are so many different contributing factors in this, and a big part of it is the objectification of women.
Right.
It is the idea that when two women have sex, that it's for the sake of a man. You know, that's a notion that I think is terribly common. There is, like you said, this idea that you could perhaps insert yourself into that circumstance, and that, you know, if two boobs is good, four must be great.
Better, yeah.
And yeah, there are just so many aspects to all of this.